Yeah, rough. Right, evening everybody. It is Saturday, something of December, nearly Christmas of December, 17th of December. And Oz is done 2 of them, that was all I could get my hands on. So we're going to take a little trip over the sea and around and a bit further, and we're going to go to France, or if you live in Yorkshire, France. Because I've got quite a few French actually, and it's French isn't a country. France is the country, but France isn't really a country that you associate with whiskey production. However, it's very, very big on whiskey drinking. Apparently, worldwide, France is the number one whiskey consumption per head in the world. So they are big on whiskey, but there is not many distilleries, but there are, and they're starting to kind of get a little bit of a worldwide reputation. And you know, the reason that you don't tend to find it outside of France is that the vast majority that's made in France is sold within France, because they're mad on whiskey. They're French, but they're mad on whiskey. So I've been very fortunate to get a few samples of various French whiskies, and I've kind of collated them together and then kind of like lined them up, and it's only when I've done a little bit of research, particularly on I've picked 3 for tonight. I'm going to do 3 tonight, but it turns out that 2 of them are from the same distillery. Now, I know I'm trying to do separate distilleries, but I'm also doing separate brands, and fortunately these 2 are separate brands, because one is a blend and the other is a single malt. So, and they're named differently as well. So I'm going to treat them as 2 separate brands, but they're actually from the same distillery. So the first one I'm going to do is the blend, which I misread, because this is from the wonderful Barry Bradford of the Whisky Files. And just because you might not be able to pick out, but I sort of misread it, and I thought it was called Galleg. So when I put it into Google this evening, it came up with Gaelic whiskies. Do you mean Gaelic? I'm like, no, I mean Galleg, because that's what it says on the label. And it was only when I put in Whisky de Bretagne, as in Bretagne, the area of France, sort of known for the Breton people and dialect, that it's actually Galleg, not Gaelic. And it's probably not even pronounced Galleg, but Galleg is apparently, Galleg, Galleg, is Breton, which is a dialect in France. Is Breton for the word France, for the country. So this is their this is the blended whiskey, which is from the I'm going to go for Waregem distillery, Waregem, Waregem distillery, and the distillery itself is here. But the Waregem family actually came from North France and settled in this region, which is near a town called Lannion, near to the river Leguer, and they settled there at the end of the 19th century. And it's only in the sort of late 80s that they actually released whiskey. They set up a distillery at the turn of the century, but it was predominantly for liqueurs. And it was only, I say recently, we're talking 25, 30 years, that they actually started doing whiskey. So this is their blended whiskey. The single malt, sneak preview, we will do next, or one of the single malts that they do. So this is 50% malt whiskey, 50% grain whiskey. Now, France is very, very big for growing barley and grain as well. You associate France with grapes and wine, and that is a big part of it, but it is also very big on barley and grain production, growth, farms, that sort of thing. So a lot of these French whiskies have the capability to use very localized barley stocks. And the Waregem distillery also has its own well. So they are using, within the grounds, they're using filtered water from their very own well. So Barry, thank you very much for this. So this is 42% ABV. This is what the bottle looks like. And in terms of the price, basically all I can give you is what it said on the Waregem website. I'm not convinced I pronounced that right at all. That's why I keep pausing, because it just doesn't sound right in my head. Waregem, but that sounds very German, so maybe the word German originally. It was €20.30 through there. Now I did see it on another website that was selling it for €26. The way the pound is going at the moment, it's roughly 26 quid, or it will be in about 2 weeks' time. once we've gone even further into the pit of Brexit despair. But I can't find anywhere that's actually selling it. Galleg particularly, can't find anywhere that's selling it in the UK or even in America, because I know I've got a few American viewers, and if you can find us in America, you've done a very good job. I bet it's not the equivalent of 20 euros. I bet it's quite a bit more than that. So, it's quite a crisp gold colour. Now, it's probably not had colouring in. Now, having done the research on the single malt that's coming up next, they are ex-bourbon casks and ex-sherry casks, and I'm presuming it's the same with this as well. But, you know, a nice pale colour. Age-wise, don't know, 5 to 7 years, something like that is my guess. Could be completely wrong, but I have a feeling it's about that. It's quite winey on the nose, though. It really is. There's a sort of dry white wine character to it, but then there's also the not soda element, but sparkling wine, because of the bubbles, because of the carbon dioxide, has a crispness to it on the nose. And there's sort of that on the nose as well. There is a slight sharpness of a grain whiskey that's in there, but it's not quite as edgy as a Scotch blend. It's a bit softer and a bit more delicate, but it's a little bit drier as well. Interesting nose though, but it's light and delicate with a bit of maltiness to it, but it's not. I'm getting a little bit of wood now that it's sort of opened up a little bit. There's a slight metallic edge, which I'm presuming is the grain. 50-50 as well, so it's a relatively high malt content for a blended whiskey. It's still quite delicate, and it's kind of grapey. And it's slightly winey. There is a maltiness to it, but it's not particular. I wouldn't say it's particularly prevalent, but it's there in the background. There is a slight sharpness of a grain whiskey, but again, it's not quite as pronounced as you would find in the majority of blends that you would come across from Scotland. There is a Scotchy character to it, but it's slightly sweeter. This is sweeter, this is softer, this is slightly caramelised, and this is caramelised. This is tart tatin. This is caramelised pear, caramelised apple, and that delicacy of the apple that's coming through. And it's poached pear, so it's pears poached. Oh God, what is that dessert? When you get a poached pear and then you pour not quite a clear but a very light caramel sauce over the top of it, or a tart tatin, apple pie caramelised. There's that sort of element, but it's a lighter type of tart tatin. It's almost an undercooked tart tatin where the caramel isn't quite burnt. And it's a little lighter, and everything about it is lighter. The pastry's lighter. The apples have been poached, but they're not really, really soft. It still has a bit of crispness and a bit of bite to it. It's very, very pleasant though. And there is a bite from what I'm considering the grain whiskey. There is a definite edge to it, 42% as well, so a couple of percent higher than they could have quite easily gone with, and I think it just gives it the edge. I think if they'd have gone down to 40, it would have been not lackluster, but it would have been missing something. That extra 2%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that extra 2% is just giving it a little edge, a little bite, just a little burn at the back of the throat that is just finishing everything off quite nicely. But it's a delicate whiskey. It's not really a dessert whiskey. It's got a little bit more to it to have before dinner though. It's kind of there's a little bit too much weight for it to be something like a kind of pre-dinner drink to get you ready for the meal, but it's not deep and rich enough to have it after dinner, but it's not even a palate cleanser in between. But it is a kind of spring summer whiskey. It does have a nice delicacy to it. There's a slightly floral character to it as well. Just as it comes into mouth, there's a slightly floral, slightly sweet, kind of like Parma Violet sweets. It's slightly sugary, but it's not cloying, but there is a sugary sweetness to it. Sugared almonds, that sort of effect. That light, slightly floral, sweet character. Then this bite comes in. It's pretty well balanced, and if you know, don't turn your nose up at a blended whiskey anyway. And for a blended whiskey, it's interesting. It holds its own. It's got enough character to it. It's got that higher malt content that's giving you the more of a depth of flavour rather than the hard edge that you get with a grain whiskey. All in all, that is not too shabby at all. 20 euros is actually a pretty good price, I think. If that was the equivalent in the UK, if it came over here and it was about 20 quid, coming from France, you go, it's interesting, it's unusual. I can imagine if I found it in the UK, it would probably be 30 quid, and then I'd be a bit hesitant. But it's interesting, and it holds its own, and it's got enough character. So as a first, because I think this is probably the very first French whiskey I have ever had, that is not a bad start at all. Right, so I'm going to do a quick rinse out, and then we shall see what the single malt, which could have been a constituent of this, is like on its own. So I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.